This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
It's tournament time, and this March, Fanatics Sportsbook has 10 times the rewards. Starting round one, we're giving you 10 profit boosts every single tournament game day. That's over 100 chances to level up your winnings. Plus, you'll earn fan cash on your bets, which you can use on anything at Fanatics. We're talking team gear, tickets, collectibles, and a whole lot more. At Fanatics Sportsbook.
Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. CT? Call 888-789-7777. MA? Call 800-327-5050. NY? Call 877-8-HOPE-NY. MD? Visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Offer not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatics Sportsbook app.
The sun is out, the birds are chirping, and the open road is calling. Bring on the spring at the Honda Spring Event and take that road trip you've been dreaming of. Now's the time to check out the Honda Civic and HR-V from Honda, the 2025 Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com Best Value Brand.
Based on 2025 Consumer Choice Awards from Kelley Blue Book, visit kbb.com for more information.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to talk mostly delivery numbers, but we have a few EV news stories peppered in there. It is Easter morning, and it is morning, so I'm going to be honest with you. My voice is not quite up to par yet. And then on top of that, my brain is not up to par, but it rarely ever is, but it's really low in terms of functionality this morning. So I hope you can forgive me while we go through this. A couple different things here. On Friday night, I got a chance to talk to Joseph, who's a part of the community, and he just purchased a Model Y and picked it up yesterday, so that's awesome. Congratulations to Joseph. And then I've plugged this YouTube channel before, but I think it's worth doing again for a couple different reasons. One is Neil is a part of the Kilowatt community, and two, he's really close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. So Neil runs the Dandy Funhouse, which is a really fun pop culture YouTube channel. And actually, it's not just a YouTube channel. There is a podcast, a YouTube, and a blog. So if you go to dandyfunhouse.com, and I'll put links in the show notes, or his YouTube channel, you will see all of the fun videos that Neil has put together. Here's the cool thing about this is I'm guessing we're roughly the same age because all of the videos he makes make me nostalgic. But the latest one is on Ronco. So if you remember Ronco from the 80s and 90s, probably mostly 90s, the Chop-O-Matic and all that fun stuff. Neil obviously puts a lot of time in research and then also presenting the material. But they're like fun little 20, 25-minute documentaries. And I would highly encourage you to go check it out if that's your thing. All right. Before we get to the news, I have one final update here. Let me pull up my correct show notes. All right. A different Joseph wrote in on the topic of tire rotations. So Carrie Murphy and I were talking about tire rotations, and Joseph wrote in to give, in his words, a few boring facts that he finds fun. I'm going to try to get through this without losing my voice. The 6,000 mile rotation cycle recommendation is actually due to the drive setup in almost all Teslas favoring the rear axle for acceleration and regeneration. In almost all models, the rear drive unit is a permanent magnet motor, which is more efficient than the front drive unit, which is induction based and only turns when needed. Because of this, rear tires on Teslas wear slightly faster. It's also part of why the cars drive so well, because it allows the rear axle to focus on speed control while the front axle focuses on steering control. It's interesting. Another reason for the more frequent rotation cycle is to compensate for issues with the vehicle alignment. If the tires are going to last for 20,000 miles, rotating every 6,000 miles using a rearward cross pattern allows each tire to spend time on each corner of the car. It also helps keep the tread on the rear axle deeper, which is the most important position for tread depth for better vehicle stability in poor weather conditions. And then he says, I'm boring, I know, but I'd love to get this information out to more people, which I found fascinating and I knew nothing about. So almost nothing about these tire rotations. I just do it because you're supposed to do it. And that's where my knowledge stops. So thank you, Joseph, for passing that along. All righty. Let's get to our EV news. In a similar follow-up, I talked about Stellantis building Leapmotor vehicles under their own brand in the U.S., under their Dodge brand. Well, Stellantis, actually, there's actually news on this, kinda. Stellantis would like to build Leapmotor EVs at one of its idled Canadian factories. Originally, Stellantis committed to building the Jeep Compass EV in that plant. They were going to invest $3.6 billion into the Ontario plant and then the surrounding area, and that would help the plant maintain a minimum of 4,475 full-time employees, which if they were able to do that, then they would get 529 Canadian dollars or 529 million Canadian dollars in federal subsidies. And Stellantis made a commitment to do this through 2025. But they've kind of pivoted recently, and they said that they would rather let Leapmotor build their EVs there. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, which if you follow Canadian politics at all, and I barely do, and I know who Doug Ford is an interesting character. But Doug Ford and the Unifor Union, which represents automakers, like the people who build planes and trains and stuff like that. So it's a big union in Canada. They are not fans of this plan, and they said that Leapmotor / Stellantis would only hire a fraction of the 4,000 plus people needed that Stellantis committed to. And it sounds like their argument, and I don't know if this is true or not, but their argument is that the parts would come directly from China and there really wouldn't be any, halo effect for Canadian parts manufacturers. It would mostly be parts that came from China. So not helping the economy in the way that the plan was originally structured. Let's put it that way. We'll see where this goes. We'll keep an eye on it for sure. Interesting that a few people wrote in, David and Mark being two of them, and one's in the UK, the other was in New Zealand, and they had really nice things to say about the Leapmotor vehicles. Oh, you know what? I found this interesting. In 2023, Stellantis invested $1.6 billion into Leapmotor. Now, that in terms of investment doesn't seem like a whole lot these days, especially when you're investing in an EV startup. But that gave them a 20% stake in the company, which is pretty impressive. Now, I'm sure as other investors come on, that stake is going to get diluted a little bit. But yeah, they own, at the moment, 20% of the company, which is nutty. You know what else is nutty? Honda's EV strategy. So over the last few weeks, we've talked about this. Honda canceled a bunch of EVs. The Prologue EV, as far as I know, has yet to be canceled, although I have heard things and other people say that it has been canceled, but I don't know if any of that is official yet. But in the first 3 months of 2026, they've only sold 3,319 Prologue EVs. So not a banger for the Honda Prologue. Now, on the other side, its sister vehicle, the Chevy Blazer, because the Prologue is built on the Ultium platform, or what used to be called the Ultium platform, which GM put together. The Blazer sold around 10,000 units in the same amount of time. And just kind of as a weird comparison, the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai has also sold close to 10,000 vehicles during that time. Here's the thing. If you're in the market for a Chevy Blazer or a vehicle the size of the Chevy Blazer, you should really look at the Prologue EV because 1, it's reviewed very well. And 2, it's got, like I said, it's built on the Ultium platform, but it has wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, whereas the Chevy vehicles might have Android Auto because their vehicles are powered by Google Automotive, but they definitely don't have wireless CarPlay. So if you're looking for a car about the size or the size of the Chevy Blazer and you want an 85 kilowatt hour battery, 308 miles of range, 294 if you go all-wheel drive, I would consider the Prologue. Also, here's another reason to consider the Prologue. Honda is knocking off another $7,500 off the price of the car. So the car now starts just barely under $40,000. So might be something that you'd want to consider if you are looking, like I said, for an EV that size with that range. Not a bad deal. Like if you were looking at the Chevy Equinox, which starts around $35,000, but you want something just a little bit nicer or maybe a little bit bigger, the Prologue is definitely a good option.
It's tournament time, and this March, Fanatic Sportsbook has 10 times the rewards. Starting round 1, we're giving you 10 profit boosts every single tournament game day. That's over 100 chances to level up your winnings. Plus, you'll earn fan cash on your bets, which you can use on anything at Fanatics. We're talking team gear, tickets, collectibles, and a whole lot more at Fanatic Sportsbook.
Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. CT call 888-789-7777. MA call 800-327-5050. NY call 877-8-HOPE-NY. MD visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Offer not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatic Sportsbook app.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from will I to why not. For over 130 years, we've been innovating higher education to make it more affordable, accessible, and attainable so you can reach your goals. Go from thinking, can I, to yes, I can, and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
Okay, so that's kind of our EV news for this portion, but we still have more. We're going to talk a little bit about delivery numbers from different companies. We're going to start off with Rivian. Rivian's Q1 2026 delivery numbers and production numbers are as follows. They produced 10,236 EVs, and they delivered 10,365. Some of these numbers include Canadian sales. So, and it's not a lot of the numbers, but typically when we read out the numbers, it's the sales for the US or worldwide. In Rivian's, case, it's 10,000 plus delivered and produced, but also includes US and Canada. Let's see. They produced a bit less than they did during the same period of time last year, but they delivered a bit more than they did during the same period of time last year. So I would say all in all, a positive for Rivian. And they definitely beat analyst expectations. So that's positive for the company. Kind of as a side note, Pat, who has been on this show several times, once with me and once being interviewed by Allison and Steve, and maybe even twice with Allison and Steve. Pat shared an article with the following information. Rivian and Volkswagen have completed their winter test for the zonal architecture for their joint venture. So if you don't know, Rivian and Volkswagen have a partnership where Rivian does the hard work and Volkswagen writes the checks. And their goal is for them to develop a software-defined vehicle. Now, I'm sure this joint venture has very talented engineers and folks from both companies, but on a very, very basic and simplistic level, they're using Rivian's tech that they already have and have been working on, and Volkswagen's money to develop this. Well, they finished their winter tests this summer in Phoenix, and I know where they do a lot of their testing in Phoenix. That is, they're supposed to do some summer testing here, and then some other places as well. So yeah, we're getting closer for the joint venture's software-defined vehicle. So that's exciting. And it opens up more money for Rivian. I think they got another $1 billion for hitting this milestone. So that's fantastic. Also, what's funny? When you look at the delivery numbers, 10,000 is right around, normal per quarter for companies like Rivian. That would be a really good number for Lucid, for instance. Rivian's only selling 2 vehicles. So, we're not expecting those numbers to be super high. But what you might not expect is those numbers are better than Ford did with EVs in Q1 2026. So just to kind of give you some context, in Q1 2025, Ford sold 22,550 EVs. In Q1 2026, they sold 6,860 EVs. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, they stopped producing the F-150 Lightning, so of course sales are going to go down. And I agree with you. However, of that 6,860 vehicles that Ford sold, EVs that Ford sold, 2,060 of them were F-150 Lightnings. So they only sold like 4,000-ish Mustang Mach-E's during Q1 2026, which is not great. They had some issues through the middle to late last year with the aluminum plant catching on fire multiple times and some other stuff going on. But yeah, 4,000 EVs for Ford, not great. Now, Ford has kind of leaned into their next generation EV platform, which is to say, they're producing a pickup truck that's around the $30,000 range, which I think is fantastic. They're also working on an affordable vehicle that would compete with the Model 3 and Model Y. Ford has, or at least Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, multiple times has said basically like, look to the Chinese because they're knocking it out of the park. So Ford is taking a more of a Chinese manufacturing approach to their vehicles, and hopefully that pays off because that's fantastic. Now, you know who else produced more EVs than Ford in Q1 2026? Toyota. Not Toyota and Lexus, Toyota itself. It produced over 10,000 EVs, sold over 10,000 EVs in Q1 2026. And that is a 79% increase year over year when compared to Q1 2025. That's fantastic. Listen, I'm trying to get some people from Toyota to come on the show, so I have to be very careful here. I still haven't changed my opinion about my friends who own Toyotas, but I still think Toyota might be that dark horse that comes out of this kind of not on top, but at the top when it comes to legacy automakers. All right, let's move to our next set of delivery numbers, and that is Chinese car company NIO. They saw a nice boost in sales year over year. So if you don't know, NIO Group is made up of 3 different companies. NIO, which is the original brand, OG, the Envo, which is kind of like mid-priced, and the Firefly, which is more of an economy. Most of the sales were made up by NIO, the main company. It was something like, and I can't remember exactly what the mix was, but it was a little over 50%, between probably 50 and 60% of sales were from NIO, the actual main company, which is the more expensive luxury brand-ish, if you want to call it that. And then the other 40 to 50% was made up of Envo and Firefly. And, those vehicles are not super expensive, but they're also, when you look at a Chinese vehicle that is, budget vehicle, the Firefly costs more, by quite a bit, than what a BYD would cost, for instance. Like a BYD Dolphin, and the beginning price of the Firefly it's not the same. Just to kind of as an example, the Dolphin costs between $11,000 and $17,000 depending on the configuration in China, and the Envo starts at $17,000. So again, not premium budget for the Firefly, but it's still selling relatively well. That's kind of what I'm trying to get across here. So you might be saying to yourself, dude, just tell us the numbers. How many did they deliver? Well, they delivered 83,465 EVs in Q1 2026. Now, keep in mind, NIO operates, across multiple countries and continents. So they're not a small company. They're a good-sized company. So selling more than 83,000 vehicles in a quarter for a company like NIO is great, but it's also a 98.3% increase year over year of Q1 2025. So a significant uptick in sales for NIO. If we're just looking at March of 2026, they sold 35,486 vehicles, and that's up 136% year over year. And then when you compare it to February of this year, it's up 70%. So, man, NIO is doing well. Let's just put it that way. NIO is doing well. So congrats to the NIO team.
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
It's tournament time, and this March, Fanatic Sportsbook has 10 times the rewards. Starting round one, we're giving you 10 profit boosts every single tournament game day. That's over 100 chances to level up your winnings. Plus, you'll earn fan cash on your bets, which you can use on anything at Fanatics. We're talking team gear, tickets, collectibles, and a whole lot more at Fanatic Sportsbook.
Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. CT, call 888-789-7777. MA, call 800-327-5050. NY, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. MD, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Offer not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatic Sportsbook app.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from will I to why not. For over 130 years, we've been innovating higher education to make it more affordable, accessible, and attainable so you can reach your goals. Go from thinking, can I, to yes, I can, and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
Okie doke. That is it for our regular EV news and deliveries. We're going to move on to our Tesla news and deliveries in just a moment. But I do want to say, if you want to support the show, which I would appreciate, you can go to support Kilowatt it's supportkilowatt.com. And when you go there, you get two options, basically. It's not basically, you get two options. It's Patreon or Supercast. So if you want to support the show, whichever company you prefer to use, it's the same benefits, which is no ads ever on the Patreon feed. So go ahead and head over to supportkilowatt.com and take a peek if you're interested in supporting the show. All of the money that comes in through the Patreon and Supercast goes right back into the show. None of that goes into my own pocket. It goes to pay for things like hosting and like website hosting, Riverside, where I do my interviews and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff costs money, and it's it's not exactly cheap. When you start having $20 subscriptions here, there, and everywhere, it gets to be spendy for sure. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to our Tesla news. Before we get to the delivery numbers for Tesla, and we'll get to that, we're going to start off with full self-driving FSD 14.3, which Elon said that FSD 14.3 should be released at the end of the week. Employees have been beta testing it, and Elon said it would go into wide release, which means public, by the end of the week. Now, I'm recording this on Sunday, which has that week had ended, and we are starting into a new week, and I'm fairly certain that it has not been released yet. I've not seen anybody talk publicly that's involved in just, they have FSD, they're normal people who have hardware for. I have not seen that. I have not seen them say that they got it yet. So we'll see where it goes. There are some influencers that may or may not have it, but just regular old people like you and me, I haven't seen anybody say they have it yet. Back in November 2025, Elon did say that 14.3 would be the last big piece of the self-driving puzzle. I'm adding editorially a little bit about the self-driving puzzle, but he said it's, the last big piece of the puzzle. And, man, it's hard for me to imagine that the last piece of autonomy, when they're basically still level 2 driving, is a point release, like 14.2 was okay, lost some functionality, some things got worse, some things got better. 14.3 is going to be a major update. Like, you would expect a major release to get like a full version, like a 15, not a point update. But who am I? Not somebody in the know. All right. So let's talk about supercharger stats for Q1 2026. I think it's interesting when Tesla releases their supercharger stats. Let's see. Starting off, Tesla opened 2,500 supercharger stalls, which is pretty impressive in 3 months. That is up 19% year over year. So they definitely increasing. Everybody was worried when Elon fired the supercharger team and put that team in other divisions, kind of spread them out a little bit, but it seems like it hasn't affected the supercharger network. In terms of energy, so Tesla's delivered 1.8 terawatt hours of energy to cars in that 3-month period, Q1, which is up 22% year over year. So if we want to we want to take that and say, well, how much gasoline was saved? So I'm going to start with liters for our friends who celebrate the metric system. 823 million liters of gasoline is what was saved with 1.8 terawatt hours of just electricity. And if we're going to convert that to gallons, it's 217 million gallons of gasoline. And that's only the cars that charged on the supercharger network. That doesn't include other, EVs that charged in other locations or EVs that charged at home. That's just cars that charged on the supercharger network. It is 823 million liters or 217 million gallons of gasoline. So, and I would imagine in terms of, percentage of charging sessions, when you compare it to level 2 chargers at home or in apartment complexes and level 3 chargers that are not run and operated by Tesla, that number is quite a bit more than the 217 million gallons or 823 million liters. So it's a step in the right direction is what I'm poorly trying to explain. That saved, just with the Tesla network, that saved 3.4 billion kilograms of CO2. It avoided, 3.4 billion kilograms of CO2. And Tesla had a total of 53 million charging sessions in that first Q1 2026 time period, that's a lot. It's a lot of charging sessions. Some other news when it comes to Tesla supercharger stations, they have stopped producing the V3 supercharger cabinet altogether. Now everything is V4 supercharger cabinets installs, so that's good. It's a huge benefit to us as we go forward, and Tesla updates their cars to take full advantage of that faster charging speed. In terms of Q1 2026 production, delivery, and energy numbers, Tesla Energy, we're going to start with that because that's real quick. They deployed 8.8 gigawatt hours of energy storage, which is actually a 38% decline year over year. When I say energy storage, that includes the mega packs, power packs, if they're even still making those, and power walls. So that's what they've deployed is 8.8 gigawatt hours, which again is a little less than 40% decline year over year. I wouldn't read too much into that. That's one quarter. If it happens over multiple quarters, then that's a different story. We'll investigate. But for right now, I wouldn't read too much into it. Okie doke. Let's go ahead and move into our vehicle delivery numbers. We're going to start off with the Model 3 and Model Y. So they produced, this is worldwide, 394,611 vehicles. It's a lot of vehicles. They produced almost 400,000 vehicles, but they only delivered 341,893 vehicles. So they produced about 50,000, a little more than 50,000 vehicles more than they delivered. So what are they doing with those extra 50,000 vehicles? No idea. I mean, I'm expecting that they're looking to sell them in Q2 2026, but that's a lot. That's a lot of inventory to have on hand. So maybe they're expecting a run on EVs. I don't know. But 50,000 is a lot of extra vehicles. Just saying. Now, in terms of their other category, and other includes Cybertruck, Model S, Model X, and Semi, they produced 13,775. So a little bit lower than they did in 2025. And we'll talk about the comparison here in just a second. I don't want to confuse anybody. So they produced 13,000, almost 14,000 vehicles in Q1 2026. They delivered right around 16,000. Well, they delivered 16,130 vehicles. So they had, clearly they were sitting on a little more than 2,000 vehicles for delivery, but not a huge difference. Now, if we're comparing that to 2025, in 2025, they actually produced 17,000 vehicles, a little bit more than 17,000 vehicles, and they delivered a little less than 13,000 vehicles. So almost inverse, from what it was in 2025. So the production numbers of 2026 and the delivery numbers of 2025 match up pretty close, and the delivery numbers of 2026 and production numbers of 2025 match up pretty close. But does that say anything? No. The only thing that it says is maybe they sold a few more Cybertrucks when Tesla gave that amazing 6 or 7 day, 10-day deal, which everybody thought was weird. So maybe they sold a few more Cybertrucks in that time period, and maybe they sold a few more Model S's and Model X's because they are no longer making the Model S and Model X. As a matter of fact, orders for the S and X have closed. So according to Elon, there is a few in inventory, and then that's it. That's all. So I'm not sure we got a huge increase in terms of deliveries in 2020. I mean, if you look at it percentage wise, yes. If you look at it for what Tesla would like the Cybertruck to sell at, I would say probably no. This number is going to get real interesting when the S and X drop out completely, and those other numbers just include Cybertruck and Semi, which I would not be surprised if Tesla just did not move the Cybertruck up to Model 3 and Model Y and just say, here's all the vehicles we delivered. And they probably include semi in that, because there's probably not very many semis that are being sold. Because I don't think they want to show you what the Cybertruck numbers are, if I had to guess. If they were really good, I think they'd want to show us, but I don't think they want to show us. Anyway, if we're looking at total numbers, when you include the other vehicles and Model 3 and Model Y, they produced 408,386 vehicles. It's great. That's fantastic. And they delivered 358,023 vehicles. So overall, I think it's down a little bit, but I don't think it's that bad. I think this is pretty good. Is it down? Hold on. I want to say that I read it was down. So no, they're up a little bit. Deliveries are up a little bit. Production is way up, but deliveries is what matters, because that's what you get paid on. So in 2025 Q1, they delivered 336,000, almost 337,000 vehicles. And in 26 Q1, they 358. So they delivered, 20,000 more vehicles. I don't think they met Wall Street's expectations, but also I don't put too much into the expectation thing. It's nice to mention when somebody beats it, but honestly, for the purposes of the show, I really don't care what Wall Street thinks. And finally, Mark sent an article that kind of summed up how Tesla did in Europe during the month of March in 2026. So the Tesla registrations surged across Europe in March. Now, when I say surged, in places like France, it's up 203%. Norway, up 178%. France is actually pretty close to a record high. Didn't quite beat it, but pretty close. Sweden sales are up 144%. Denmark's up 96%. This is great. I mean, they're not selling a ton of cars in any of these markets, but the fact that they're up this high kind of indicates that maybe sentiment in Europe is changing from what it was in last year. Kind of as an honorable mention, growth was also strong in Belgium, the Netherlands, Italy, and Spain, but there was a slight drop in Portugal, and then, the rest of Europe, there were some mixed results, not worth mentioning, not because those countries aren't worth talking about. It's just, we'd be here all day. And it's Easter. And my wife has been very patient for me to be sitting in here and recording this on a day that we're all supposed to be hanging out. So I'm going to dip. I'm going to go and spend some time with my family, maybe build some Lego. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I hope you all are doing as good as humanly possible. Like I want you all to be awesome. So I'm sending my love to you on this day. And on Tuesday, I think we're going to probably have news. Towards the end of the month, I have some personal travel that I have to do. I mean, it's kind of fun travel, kind of not travel. My mom has Alzheimer's and she fell and broke her hip. So I'm going to go, and she's in a home now. So, there's a whole thing that I got to go and do, which I'm happy to do. It's just not something that's fun. In terms of it's going to be a sad trip. I'm just leave it at that. But anyway, so towards the end of the month, we're going to have some pre-recorded shows with really good interviews. So I don't want to say too much because 2 of the interviews haven't been recorded yet, but Allison Sheridan, one of the interviews has definitely happened already, and she's already given me the file. But Allison Sheridan from the NosillaCast and podfeet.com, she gave me a interview that she did with her friend Ron, and Ron has an older Model S, and I'm not quite sure what model number it was or what year it was, but it was early on. And he kind of went through the process of, do I buy a new car or do I swap the battery out in this existing car? And he chose to swap the battery out, and they go through the kind of how much it cost and what it would have cost to go through Tesla versus third-party companies and the benefits. It was a really good interview. So I think you're going to enjoy that. That's coming up. And like I said, I've got 2 interviews that I'm supposed to record this Friday. So that will also give us some some extra content towards the end of the month. So anyway, even though I don't always get this show out on time, I am recording multiple times a week to make sure that we have content at least twice a week. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Again, I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Sending all my love to you on today. And I will talk to you on Tuesday.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from, is it possible, to anything is possible by offering access to up to 10 no-cost gen ed courses, so you can reach your goals affordably and fast. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. No-cost gen eds provided by Strayer University affiliate Sophia. Eligibility rules apply. Connect with us for details. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.